Hello, Lab Experts. Once more, welcome to the Diagnostics podcast. In this episode of the podcast, we're going to be sitting down with the medical laboratory scientist, Siobhan Rogers, and we're going to talk about the role of medical laboratory science within healthcare. And also, for those of you out there who might be interested in opening a laboratory today, we'll talk a little bit about startups in the medical laboratory sector. So how are you doing today, Siobhan?
I'm pretty okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine too. Seems very sunny where you are. I'm always in this dark place
It
every time.
actually isn't sunny.
Oh, really?
It actually isn't that sunny. We actually have a tropical wave that's been passing. It's
Ah,
expected to leave by tomorrow at 4 p.m. So I hope everybody in Trinidad stays safe, more or less. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully. Hopefully. We'll pray for you on our
Yeah.
side too.
Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I actually got into lab in a very strange way. I actually wanted to do pediatrics. And so I decided to do a first degree in biochemistry and then after go into medicine. But right after I finished my degree, one of my really good friends, she sent me a message and said, "Hey, I know you did science. I know someone that has a lab job offer. Would you be interested?" So I was like, sure, let me give it a try. And then I went to the job. I got through the interview, and I started working in labs. And it was something I didn't really think about. Funny enough, I didn't think that this existed. Working in the labs, being directly involved in finding out what is wrong with a patient. So yes, you have doctors who see patients directly, but when it comes to lab, we're actually almost like the ones who are telling you doctors, hey, this is what's wrong. And I thought it was so interesting, especially seeing people and then relating their ailments to results. I was very interested. It was another aspect of medicine that I didn't think about. And after that, I just kept going on with it. So I started off my first job, a very reputable laboratory, Victoria Labs, a very excellent boss, Mr. Neela Joda. And then I transitioned after about 4 or 5 years to St. Augustine Medical, another excellent entity that I had the privilege to work with for almost about 8 years. That's head by Dr. Baumiki Ramsaram. And I worked there in their outstations in St. Clair and at the main lab in St. Augustine Medical until COVID hit. And then I decided, let me branch out on my own. And I gradually took some steps to start Apex Diagnostics. That's kind of how the whole lab thing came about. It was just by chance. I decided, let me take a break from work because after university, going straight into working, and not really taking that much vacation, I decided I needed to just take a break. I took a year off in the midst of COVID, and I started to get fit. I started to work out because I also do taekwondo. And at the end of that year, which would have been 2020, I was just given this great opportunity to start Apex with a great team that I have with two other guys. And everything flourished from there. So that's kind of where we started.
All right. So you had a lucky break and ended up in medical laboratory science then. That's nice.
It's just a lucky break.
Yeah. And I think this story is quite a common one as far as not knowing what medical laboratory science is. It's not very long ago when I was discussing with someone in a podcast similar to this, that he told me that he used to think medical laboratory scientists were essentially like doctors, that everybody was put into that same basket of doctors. And it's when he said that I realized, yes, that's always sort of how I thought of medical laboratory scientists. Like I would go to the hospital. Yes, there'll be someone to take my blood, and I knew probably somewhere there are some tests being done. But in my head, I always assumed it was sort of the same field, right? Exactly. It was always the doctors until I got into the field, and then I started realizing, okay, it's actually different. There are two different sets of people, multiple sets of people that are actually working together to make sure that patients feel better.
That's exactly it. And I mean, going more into lab, I realized everybody so thinks that that's what it is when you become a doctor sometimes, that if we were able to educate people more about laboratory technology, you'd have more people off the bat realizing this is what I want to do. This is the field I want to get into, versus thinking I had to do medicine to then go back to this thing that's so wonderful in its own self. And as you said, it's a lot of different things working together, lots of cogs coming together. So you have the doctors, you have the phlebotomists, you have the technicians, all working together to give a patient or a client, depending on if it's a private entity, the results that they need and leading them closer to diagnosis.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And you said it's COVID that sort of pushed you to be more serious about opening your own lab. Is it an idea that you had before then, or what happened exactly during that period?
I think after my first year working as a lab tech, I started looking at what courses can I do. How do I do this myself? Just because I was really interested in it. And I always used to say after my first year, I used to tell my friends, guys, one day I'm going to open my lab and you guys will come and work for me. And we all laugh about it, and every year I say it. And it's not to the discredit of the entities that I was part of. It was just something in me. I was kind of like, this is where I want to go. This is the route I want to take. So then after that break with COVID, what really happened is that someone reached out to me to kind of ask me what were my thoughts in collecting samples and sending it to other entities. And I was like, why do we want to send it to other entities? Why can't we do something ourselves? Why can't we create that testing thing? If we're getting the clientele, why send it elsewhere? Why not try to find a way to do it ourselves? And it was not necessarily the peak of COVID, but in Trinidad, we had a lot of ups and downs with our numbers. And we said, let's start off with COVID testing as a way to, get ourselves known. And then eventually, continuing forward, we just decided, okay, we're going to do COVID testing and then gradually branch out into biochemistries, hematology, immunology, and everything like that. And that's kind of how we worked out.
All right. So you started, and that was a very good idea. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. That's fine.
I was saying that's a pretty nice strategy, starting with what was more, let's say, important at that point in time, and then eventually start branching out. Yeah. I think sometimes maybe the error some people make is not necessarily looking at the market before jumping in, but wanting to do something in particular and trying to force through. But if no one is interested in that, it's not going to work.
Exactly. And I think even though since this would have been a thought I had since, let's say, 2012, right? So since 2012, I would have been thinking I've started my own lab. And it's not until like 2020, 2021 that things really started getting going. And I think one of the major things is that I was nervous, as you said, about breaking ground in a field that is already saturated with very developed labs that have been open 30, 40 years. How can I, as a new person, a young person, infiltrate that market and have people trust me and still be able to balance your books and be able to survive in that environment? And COVID was really easy way to get in and for people to see the quality of work you're willing to provide them, the quality of service. And then once people trust you and feel confident and you've done your due diligence to make sure that they get what they need, which is their result, in a timely manner, and it's correct, people would say, hey, what else do you offer? What else can we come to you for? And that was really what kind of pushed me this time to really try it. As opposed to before, I was very timid. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a large capital investment. How can I start off without failing? And I think that's one of the things that usually keep people back generally from doing things that they love, which is that they put so many pressures on themselves about what if it doesn't work? What if this fails? What if I don't make enough? And I look at a lot of videos of entrepreneurs and business owners, well-to-do ones, and they always say, your first business is not the one that really makes it. You start off with your first business it might crash, and then you start over, maybe with a new business or the same business.
Yeah.
And then you reinvent something else and you start again. And until something sticks and you just flourish with it. And just so happens that because of my love for lab and just because of the climate with COVID, that was able to flourish together, and it's going pretty good so far.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice story. Now, at some point you talked about balancing books, and that made a question pop into my head. How was it switching from the technical aspect and then putting on the managerial cap? Like, how did you manage that?
Well, I was afforded a great opportunity for my previous employers to actually manage a lab. So I had some idea of managing a laboratory and ones that are ISO certified. So it wasn't too difficult, but managing is not really the problem. It's when you are the shareholder and you have to invest and know that what I'm investing in is going to work. So that's really what's a little different, and you never really know how it's going to work out until you're there. You have to take a chance. And I'm a person who I like to cross my T's and dot my I's, and this was something I had to be like, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna take a chance. Let's take a chance. And one of the other directors in the team, he is more of a risk taker than I am. And he has allowed me to see that sometimes taking risks helps you grow. And they say your growth happens outside of your comfort zone. And with this business, I've been able to learn that you have to come out of your comfort zone. And sometimes things don't work, and sometimes it works, and be okay with that. It's been a struggle to battle my trying to be very planned and knowing that this is for sure going to work, then investing into it versus giving it a shot. That you have like a 60% chance it might work or a 40% chance it might work sometimes, but sometimes you have to take the shot. And this is something that.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say this is something because I also do taekwondo, and this is something that I tell the kids that I coach a lot. If you had to go fight somebody, you can't always go to a fight knowing that you're going to win, because then the number of fights that you might have would be very small, and your ability to improve your skills would be limited, because if you always win, then you don't challenge yourself. So sometimes you have to challenge yourself with things, and sometimes you won't make it, and sometimes you would. So the same words that I tell them, I had to bite it and take it myself and really try hard to push forward with that with the lab.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just about strategy, right? It's just about putting the maximum amount of probability on your side, even though there are areas where you might fall. You try and just to make sure that at least you put all the chances as much as possible on your side so that you can keep flourishing and moving forward. Now, you also talked a bit about investment. How did that happen to invest in the lab? Was it personal investments that you came with your partners and then you created the lab, or how did that happen?
Yes, so we had discussions with our partners, and everybody kind of decided what they would have invested into the business: capital, time, physical things. So all of that was a discussion that we all had, and we really did start off very small. And our intent was COVID. Everybody wants to get COVID testing. It was a necessity. Instead of trying to reach to people off the street, let's try to aim for companies, because what we did is in the start, we set up our 5-year plan. And because we knew where we wanted to go to, we knew what we needed to start off with versus kind of just going with it, how it goes day by day. So our goal is one day to become our own private medical institute where patients could come receive their scans, receive their blood tests, see a doctor, everything in one building. It makes it a lot easier, because you don't want to have to go to one location to see a doctor, go somewhere else to do a blood test, go another place to do a scan. But if there's a facility that you could do all together, that would be great. And that's what we want to achieve. So in order to achieve that, we really needed to target large entities to bring in volume. And once you bring in any volume, people would understand and see the quality of your work, and word of mouth And then we started using social media strategies, and that's kind of how we expanded from there.
And the volume wasn't too much at first, because I think one of the things with volume that would have scared me is that the team would not be able to, contain everything as it was happening. How did you manage that aspect?
So funny enough, we all were like, guys, in the first 2 to 3 months, as with any business, you don't expect to be making extreme profit. So we're like, we're going to start off small. And so the first 2 weeks was easy. And then I was pushing to be part of the ministry approved list. Because that means that you're of a certain standard. And for my previous employer, standards mean everything. So I was like, we have to kind of try to maintain a standard, show people that we're at a certain quality. And the moment our name got on that list, I swear it's like exponential growth that we really weren't prepared for. Because as I said, we were trying to target companies. But then where we're located, people didn't have access to a facility close by. So then everybody just decided to come to us. And then we had to try to adjust our model to suit the new setup that we were going to have, which is patients coming into us, clients coming to us to get their testing. So even though we have our set plans, we're still tweaking and adjusting. And I believe all entities, you have to be able to be fluid and allow allow things to be able to change.
Be like water.
Be like water, exactly.
And when the extra work came in, so sometimes what tends to happen, let's say in businesses, is you get extra work and people have a tendency to sort of specialize. Let's say you're 3 partners, everybody will have a tendency to niche down in one particular direction. What tended to happen? Like what were some of those changes? What did you end up deciding to take on?
Well, luckily enough, the team that we had, even though everybody was in something different, we have a consultant, we have somebody who's a business person, and we have me who's in lab. Somehow, all of us were able to still work together to be able to achieve things. So we just kind of bounce ideas off each other. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And kind of come to decisions. So initially, we didn't have to like separate ourselves. We kind of just all threw ideas into a pot and kind of like chose the best option that we thought at the time. And because we're all flexible, it was easy to make adjustments as things passed. So let's say we decided to do A and we realized A is not working. We're like, all right, next one, plan B. So we were very, very flexible with that. And even when the work expanded, definitely we had a great team of employees, technicians and phlebotomists who were willing to stay extra hours and work to get things out because they felt like part of the team building up what is now Apex. They really were happy to be part of that. So that was a great help to me. We definitely had a great team of people working on the ground to keep things running smoothly.
I was about to ask what was the background of those that came with you to take care of this, but you've already said it. So business, consultancy. Actually, I think that's a really good mix because you have more people on the technical side, people that are a bit more used to the business side. So I think that was a perfect mix actually to begin. Now,
it's if you end up with everybody who's technical, you only think a certain way and you're limited to what you can do. But because everybody is in a different aspect of business, let's say, it was easy for us to come together and try to find the best things that work.
Yeah. You always get the best when diverse ideas for the most part. When it came to your employees, you said you had employees. How did you manage salaries at the beginning? Was it from your original investments or was it from people that came in to ask for testing? How did that go? Or did they accept to just start with you and then eventually get paid?
No.
All right.
There's no free labor. No, so initially it would have been from capital investment. And then we reached to the point where we were able to, from the income that was coming in, to be able to pay our staff. So, I mean, I think that was fast-tracked because of COVID, because there was a need for something that we could provide. So people were coming. But with the switch from COVID into routine testing, now you have to push to get people to come to your entity to do these tests, because there's so many other places you can do these routine tests. Sometimes people are prescribed tests to do and they don't do them. So That's why we decided our slogan was transforming healthcare. Because at some point in time, COVID goes away and any other pandemic comes and goes, we go back to regular life. And how do we educate people? How do we get people to understand the benefit of doing your lab test versus thinking that they're just spending a lot of money? How do we get them to understand this is important to their health and will help a doctor be able to diagnose them quicker? And also, how do we educate the doctors on what test options are available for different types of ailments? Because as much as doctors have an idea of what enzymes they're looking for when it comes to a particular thing, let's say diabetes, you're looking for high levels of glucose, they might not know other specialized tests. So that's our responsibility as a laboratory to educate the doctors or the health professionals, and also to educate the layman to understand that, hey, your doctor is actually prescribing this to you, not because they just want you to spend money in a private entity or wherever, but because they want to give you the best care that they can. And to do so, they need to know what's going on with your body chemistries to be able to help guide you as to what you should do going forward.
And this educational aspect, is it something you've already started embarking on? How do you plan on doing that? Because when you take, for example, medical doctors, in some cases, there is not necessarily always, it's not necessarily always easy to find them and then get the time to sit them down and then teach them something. And then the public, in some cases, you have to start thinking of ways of making what you are sharing a bit more entertaining so that they also sit down and then look at that. Like, how are you navigating that aspect?
Yeah, so when we were first starting up the business, we sat with a really great person to help us figure out what values the company wanted to have, what was our slogan, and that's how we came up with Transforming Healthcare. So from the start, our aim was to educate people on testing, especially with COVID, as there was so much misinformation out there. We decided, let's use the platforms that people use regularly to educate them. At that time, you don't want to meet with anybody. You don't want to have to spend extra time to sit down to say, well, you know, Doc XYZ, especially when it comes to educating a doctor, they're in their niche, they know what they're doing. So as a lab tech to come to say, hey, Doc, you need to do this, it might seem a little bit off. So we educate people using social media. So we use LinkedIn, we use Instagram, we use Facebook, and our posts are not truly only about telling people come to get tested by us. It's also like, why should you do this test? Because of these reasons. What is this test about? Because of these reasons. Why would your doctor prescribe this? And as that information is going out there, people start asking questions. And on the social, we would answer them so that it helps people understand things a little bit more, which is one thing I felt like might have been a hit or miss when it came to our health ministry educating people regarding why they should do an antigen test, or why is it better to do a PCR test, why we're closing borders, and why we should get vaccinated. And I think once you start sending out things for people to understand, they kind of come to you for more information. They'll come to you for testing. So one of the things we started doing with our socials, ever so often we'll have a mythbuster, something that's very popular out there that people talk about, like vaccines have a chip that's going to be implanted in you. And then we'd say, can this really be true? How are we going to bust this myth? And then we say the size of the needle for an implant and the size of the needle for a regular vaccine is very different. So it's almost impossible with the technology that we have currently for you to get implanted with a chip with the current vaccine that we have. Simple, using visuals, little bit of words, not too technical. That helps people understand. It doesn't make sense going extremely technical to the layman, because then the message is lost. So you just explain, hey, different sizes, it's not possible. Simple as that. So with everything, we're going forward explaining why it's important. And especially when we have things like Breast Cancer Awareness Month or AIDS Day, or different things like that, we end up talking about what is AIDS, what is breast cancer, how can you safeguard yourself, or how can you do preemptive testing to make sure that, you know, you're in the safe zone. Yeah, we do all those things to get people to understand why they should do their testing.
Yeah, you're right. When you go directly to the layman and then you go technical, their eyes glaze over and they start thinking of the next thing to do. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Happens to everyone.
And that's how we can help. As a lab, I think that's the easiest way we can help transform healthcare, by helping people get information. Because the doctors do face a difficult task in convincing patients to do something. Especially when it comes to like sugar, and I always talk about diabetes or heart health, because those are two things that are very prevalent in Trinidad. So getting people to understand their diet. So in Trinidad, we have a delicacy, I don't know if you've ever had it, called doubles. It's very delicious. So it's two flatbreads, kind of. We call it bara, and then it's filled with chickpeas or chana, and then you fill it with sauces, sweet sauce, all sorts of different things. It's delicious. However, if you eat, it's small, so people might eat 5 of those in one sitting. That's a lot. So that's just a large amount of sugar that you're ingesting. And then you have roti, or you have pilau for lunch. And that, as the day goes on, just more and more sugar intake. And if we get people to understand how to adjust their diet, we could probably help reduce the occurrence of people with diabetes. Just helping them figure out what things I can eat. And instead of saying, don't eat that at all, you can say, have one one every so often. And I think, that's the best we can do. And then following that up with timely results, accurate results, and having a kind of network with doctors where when the patient comes to us to get their test done, they don't have to come back to us to get their results. We send it to your doctor. You just go straight there and they're going to give you the information. We could send you your results electronically. So let's say anything happened to you and you're not home, you don't have to go back home to get your results. They're electronic. I mean, and while we're doing it electronically, we're kind of protecting the environment by reducing the amount of carbon print by printing paper. We try to reduce that as much as we can. So that's our little way of, trying to transform things.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Made me a bit hungry with all those descriptions right there, but okay, let's go.
It's delicious. If you ever come to Trinidad, definitely have doubles, have rosy, have pilau. It's really good.
Try that. Thanks. So when it comes to transforming, what do you think is the most important ways laboratories need to transform in the near future? What do they need to do more of?
So I think this is a very unpopular opinion. But I look at international labs such as Quest Diagnostics and Verico and stuff like that, and they do specialized testing. And what I've realized locally is that we don't do the specialized, right? Everybody, because each entity wants to, you don't start a company just to break even. You start a company to make money and to grow, right? So the easiest thing to do is the thing that everybody wants. But if all the labs only do the things that everybody wants, what happens to the specialized testing? We have to send it abroad because we can't do it here. So I think as laboratories, if we find a way to work together in tandem with each other, you have a lab that is specific to paternity testing that can be done locally. Then you have another lab that's specific to certain types of biochemistry. And then you have another lab that's specific to another type of specialization. And if all the labs can work together, when clients come to, let's say client came to me and they needed to do paternity, they needed to do some type of other types of molecular testing, they needed to do biochemistry, microbiology. I, as a lab, will have my specialty, and then I can send the others to those other entities. So we're working as a network versus working as an individual. Because if we continue to work as individuals, we can't increase our scope because the amount of specialized testing is small, but it's costly, especially when you have to send it abroad and get US to do that. So if we as labs can work together, and have people specialize, we can all spread the cost of that expensive equipment. Because I now don't have to get 10 different machines for those specialized tests. I just need to get one, and somebody else gets one, another person gets one. But I do think it's an unpopular opinion, because in Trinidad, it does seem that people don't do business together. It's very me, myself, and I. And hopefully, as Apex is introduced and we work with other labs, we all can get some type of synergy with each other and kind of share the wealth, if for lack of a better word.
Yeah, because I was about to ask whether the idea is really unpopular, because I know even down here it's the same thing. People don't really like working together. But the thing is, if you take everyone individually and then you ask them if it would be good to have specialized laboratories, they'll tell you yes. But when it comes to actually putting it in practice and then working in groups, that's where things kind of break down. Yeah, but I think we all know it's something that needs to be done.
It needs to be done. And I mean, yes, Trinidad is small, but if we look at Trinidad and the whole Caribbean, then you have a bigger group of people to get testing from. So now you have labs across the Caribbean that could send things to each other, increasing sales for each of the labs in the different countries is going to help, versus us in the Caribbean having to send everything external. We can do it here. We can do it in the Caribbean if we all work together. There's a lab in Jamaica doing something. There's one in Barbados, one somewhere else. And the flights to those countries are relatively frequent and cheap. It's not going to be as costly to send them across. Once we have the correct storage requirements, it should be easy.
Yeah.
And if there is like a hub that can be done in this region, I think the Caribbean could then stand on its own.
Yeah, so you'd say the most important thing is just more synergy between laboratories, making sure that they work together and all right.
Yeah, more synergy. Because one thing in Trinidad, we don't necessarily have a strict governing body when it comes to laboratory. So everybody can kind of do their own thing. And if you have standards, you can choose if you want to go ISO 15189 route, or you can do CAP. Or you could choose to do no type of standard. But if we started working with each other, it helps. It makes us all provide a better service.
Yeah.
And in providing a better service, people would feel more willing to come to do their testing. So it's a kind of catch-22, because at the same time, I don't want my business to lose out. If there's a way I can make money, especially when you're thinking of business, we're not talking about the health side of it. When you're thinking business, you start a business when you know there's something that you could achieve and you can do this thing, you'd keep doing it to make money. But now we're talking about the priority being the clients getting their service, and then we somehow make a business of that. I don't think that's very popu'popular.
It's true. Because the problem with that is going to be, let's say, in a case where you have two different kinds of tests, and let's say you've decided person A does test A, person B does test B. You are A, you keep sending the B samples to the other guy, but at some point you realize, okay, there are so many B samples, he's making so much more money than me. Maybe I should start doing some B testing.
Let me do it.
Then...
Exactly. But the thing is, when you do it initially, you would yourself start seeing what people actually want. So then, because right now we're sending everything abroad, it makes it difficult for people to do that. And if they can't do it, that means they don't do the test. And a doctor will now have to kind of guesstimate what their treatment option should be, because they can't do the test. But if we start off with one company doing it, eventually it'll come to a point where other companies can do it, and doctors will request that test more frequently because they know it can be done here. Doctors don't request it because it can't be done. They're like, oh, it's going to take 4 weeks because it has to go abroad. I won't worry about it. Let me think about some other option that they have. So that's my thought process. But I mean, it's gonna take a lot of synergy and years and a different kind of mindset to achieve something, I believe. But definitely companies like Quest Diagnostics, they're doing it, and they're all in the same country. I know they have a larger volume of people just generally because of the population, it can be done. It can be done. We just have to figure out how.
As long as people work together.
Yeah.
I think that it really comes down to that, really. As long as people are willing to work together, it's something that can pretty easily work out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to us today. It was a very enlightening discussion.
I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Also helped me learn a bit more about Trinidad and the good Trinidadian food that I have to try.
Yes. You have to come to Trinidad for Carnival. You have to come for Christmas. That's when we have our most delicious food. I mean, we have delicious food all the time. Yeah. But people really go hard for Christmas and they go hard for all of the different festivals that we have. Yeah. So if ever you're coming to Trinidad, give me a call. I'm going to make sure to carry you to all the best places to get that food.
Sure will. All right. Thanks a lot for taking the time today. So where do people get in contact with you if they want to?
All right. So they could get us on Facebook at Apex Diagnostics Limited. They could also get us on Instagram at Apex HD-TT. And then they can contact us at 228-1068 or 462-5794. All
right.
You can give us a call or even send us via WhatsApp.
All right. Thanks. The lab experts, you heard it here today. More synergy is needed in the medical laboratory sector. If you're a medical laboratory scientist, try and make sure you work a bit more with those around you. And if you're a patient, try and learn more about medical laboratory tests, why they are important, and why you need to invest in those for the betterment of your health. Thanks a lot for being here with us today again, and hopefully we'll see you next time to talk more MedLab.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great one.